What happens when the man who signs your paycheck shows up in your break room and no one knows who he is? Noel Nanders leaned against the passenger window of a beat-up city shuttle bus, tugging his worn work cap lower over his brow. His brown beard grayed up with dye, itched under the heat of the depot's morning rush. He had traded his tailored suits for navy blue coveralls and his usual BMW for a rusted-out Nissan. For the next 5 days, he'd be Ray, a new trainee working the mid-shift. 12 years ago, Noel bought the chain of city bus depots from its aging founder. It had grown to 18 locations across the state. He'd focused on expansion contracts, new routes, larger garages, but lately the problems had started creeping in. Complaints, driver turnover, missed schedules, but nothing specific enough to act on. Too much noise, not enough signal, he muttered as the bus pulled into the depot lot. The manager at this location, Marty, had never met Noel face to face. Most of the depot staff hadn't. The corporate office was 3 cities away, and Noel had always dealt through district managers or email. That distance made it easy to hide in plain sight. Inside, the break room smelled like burnt coffee and sweat. A whiteboard listed shift times and route coverage. Noel had barely stepped in when a voice barked, "You Ray?" He turned. A tall guy with a shaved head and square jaw was glaring at him. "Yeah," Noel said. "That's me." "You're late. Let's go," the man said. "I'm Trevor. I'll train you today. Don't slow me down." Trevor didn't wait for a reply. Noel grabbed his cap and followed him out to the lot. They climbed into bus E12. Trevor drove the first 2 hours, showing him the route, pointing out shortcuts and potholes. "You get 2 minutes early, you use it to breathe. Don't waste time," he said. Noel noted everything. The bus was clean but loud. The radio barely worked. The air conditioning wheezed. But the real red flag came at 1:52 p.m. They were running 6 minutes late. At the last stop, Trevor pulled the door closed and turned to him. "All right, we're supposed to break now, but we're behind. So you're eating while I drive." Noel blinked. "Wait, what? You want to make schedule or not?" Trevor said, annoyed. "You stop, you fall behind. You fall behind, dispatch crawls up your well, you'll find out." "But don't we—" Noel started. Trevor cut him off. "Look, there's no time for lunch. You eat when you're dead." Noel stared at him. Was he joking? But Trevor was dead serious. For the next 2 hours, they didn't stop once. Noel's stomach growled. He watched other drivers zip past as they stuck to their loop. At the depot, they pulled in just before 4. Trevor grabbed his things. "You're on your own tomorrow. Don't be late. Skip the lunch." Noel climbed down slowly. His knees ached. He was exhausted. He looked around. In the far corner, a woman in a safety vest leaned against the wall, sipping water from a reused soda bottle. Her name tag read, Janessa. She looked like she'd been through hell. "You knew?" she called. "Yeah, Ray." She gave a tired smile. "Good luck." "You'll need it." He walked over. "You don't take breaks either?" Janessa laughed once. "Breaks? Here?" She shook her head. "We're down 5 drivers. Management says they're hiring, but nobody stays. You fall behind. You don't eat." "Every day?" "Every day." Noel felt something twist in his gut. "Doesn't dispatch care?" She looked away. "They care about numbers. That's it." He stared at her. "Why do you stay?" "I got 2 kids. I'm not going to risk losing this job, even if it kills me." That night, Noel sat alone in his motel room, staring at the ceiling. He hadn't eaten until after 6. His body hurt. His stomach was still off. And all he could think about was what Janessa said. "Even if it kills me." He checked the depot schedule again. Trevor was on tomorrow, so was Janessa. He'd ride with someone else this time, see if it was just one bad trainer or if this was how they all worked. He had a feeling it wasn't just Trevor, and if that was true, then something was very, very wrong. By 5:45 the next morning, Noel was already seated on the edge of a battered metal bench outside the depot's back entrance, sipping black coffee from a paper cup he'd picked up at a gas station. His legs were stiff from the previous day. The sky was still dark, and the only sounds were the low rumble of diesel engines warming up and the distant wheeze of air brakes. A tall woman with a clipboard emerged from the dispatch office, her braided hair tucked under a faded baseball cap. She scanned a sheet, then looked up. "You Ray?" He stood. "Yeah." "You'll be with Carlos on Route 42. He's in Bay 3. Noel nodded and made his way across the cracked lot. Bay 3's overhead light flickered as he approached. Carlos was already inside the bus, checking the mirrors. He looked to be in his early 40s, solid build, eyes weary but alert. "You the new guy?" Carlos asked without turning. "Yeah. Ray." Carlos yanked the emergency brake and climbed down. "You got a license?" "Yeah." "Good. You'll drive the second half. I'll take the first." They pulled out just past 6. The route took them through the industrial edges of town, then into the eastern residential blocks. Carlos drove with quiet efficiency, not wasting a movement. He greeted every rider with a nod or a short morning. Halfway through the shift, he handed the wheel to Noel. "Keep it tight on corners. This bus pulls left if you brake too hard." Noel nodded and eased into the seat. As they rolled through the neighborhood, Carlos leaned against the sidebar near the fare box. "You get trained by Trevor yesterday?" "Yeah." Carlos exhaled slowly. "Figures." Noel didn't respond. He kept his hands at 10 and 2, eyes scanning the road. "He's been here too long," Carlos said after a while. "Thinks the depot runs on fear." "Does it?" Carlos gave a short laugh, low and dry. "It runs on whoever doesn't quit that week." They paused at a stoplight. Noel glanced across the street. A man in a neon yellow vest was arguing with someone near a delivery truck. A kid with a backpack darted past the front of the bus. "You like the job?" Noel asked. Carlos didn't answer right away. "It's honest work, but lately—" He paused. "Lately, it feels like someone upstairs took their hands off the wheel." Noel caught the words. "How so?" Carlos scratched his jaw. "We're down 3 full-timers. Dispatch says they're hiring, but we haven't seen new faces stick more than a week. Routes keep getting doubled up. I've done 12 days straight." 12? Carlos nodded. "No overtime cap anymore. They pulled it last quarter, said it was temporary." He looked out the window. "Still waiting." Noel's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. The bus lurched forward. They finished the loop just before 1. Back at the depot, Carlos parked and killed the engine. "Lunch?" he asked, more as a formality. Noel shrugged. "Sure." Carlos led him toward the break room, but they didn't make it that far. At the side of the building, a heated voice burst through the air. "I told you, you can't park there." Noel turned in time to see a supervisor in a button-down shirt, someone he hadn't seen before, towering over a young driver who looked barely out of high school. The kid's cheeks were flushed. "I was told to pull around." "I don't care what you were told. You blocked that spot again. You're done." Carlos stepped forward. "Hey, that's Malik. He's only been here 2 weeks." The supervisor turned. "Then maybe he should learn quicker." Carlos didn't flinch. "He's on time every day. Ran Route 11 with me last Saturday. Covered 2 loops when dispatch had no one else." The supervisor's eyes narrowed. "You want to cover for him? Be my guest. You can both write up statements." Noel watched the exchange in silence. When the supervisor turned and stormed off, Malik looked down and started to walk away. "Hang on," Noel said, stepping forward. "What happened?" Malik hesitated. "I brought the bus in early, like dispatch said." He lit into me before I even stepped out. Carlos added, "That's Darren. He's not even supposed to be on the lot today. Just shows up sometimes to yell." "Who is he?" "Shift coordinator. Reports straight to regional." Noel filed the name away. He looked over the lot. Several drivers were sitting inside their idling buses, eating sandwiches behind the wheel. One woman had her seat reclined, trying to nap. "Is this normal?" Noel asked. Carlos didn't answer. Inside the break room, Janessa sat at a corner table, peeling the lid off a yogurt cup. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked up. "Rough morning?" Noel asked. She didn't respond. Just pushed the yogurt away and stood. "I'm out early today. Lucky me." He watched her go, then turned back to Carlos. "How often does Darren do that?" "Often enough," Carlos said. "Sometimes he picks on the kids. Sometimes he just walks around watching. Doesn't even talk." Noel thought for a moment. "Anyone ever file a complaint?" Carlos gave him a long look. To who? That night, Noel waited until the parking lot was empty before slipping into the dispatch office. He used the badge given to trainees. He'd specifically asked HR not to load it with any admin access, but he didn't need access. He only needed eyes. The weekly shift board was handwritten on a corkboard. 3 names had been crossed out. A note in the corner read, "Still interviewing." On the desk, a pile of timesheets sat half completed. He flipped one open. Carlos. 12 days, no break logged. Janessa. 5 consecutive shifts, each one showing 9 hours behind the wheel. Malik. 2 write-ups, both marked parking violations. The second happened 3 minutes after his shift ended. Noel stared at the paper. He picked up another sheet. A driver named Elena had reported a broken seatbelt latch. The note was dated 2 weeks ago. A red pen scribble across the bottom read, "Not urgent." He left the office and stepped back into the night. The next morning, he didn't take a route. He stood by the far wall of the garage, clipboard in hand, watching. Darren arrived at 7:10. He didn't greet anyone, just walked the line of buses, occasionally tapping the side with his knuckles. Noel followed from a distance. At the second bay, Darren stopped and leaned into a bus window. "You again?" he said sharply. It was Malik. "Sir, I'm assigned Route 11. Not anymore. You're on standby. Go sit inside. I'll let you know if you're needed." Malik blinked. "But you deaf?" Noel stepped forward. "Something wrong?" Darren turned, annoyed. "Who are you?" "Ray, training." Darren eyed him. "Stay out of it." Malik climbed down from the bus and walked toward the depot, face expressionless. Darren muttered something under his breath and started toward the next bay. Noel stepped in front of him. "I've heard you've written up several drivers lately." "Yeah. Want to join the list?" "I hear complaints don't go anywhere." Darren squinted. "You got a problem with how I manage?" Noel didn't blink. "I do." Darren laughed. "You're a trainee. You don't know anything." Noel pulled a folded slip from his pocket and handed it over. Darren looked down. His face paled. The paper was a temporary ID, but this one didn't say Ray Trainee. It said, "Noel Nanders owner, CEO." Darren's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Noel's voice was steady. "You're done. Get off the property." "You can't." "I just did." Darren stood frozen. Carlos had appeared behind them, along with 3 other drivers. No one said a word. Noel turned to them. "If anyone else has been mistreated by this man, I want written statements by noon." He looked back at Darren. "I'll wait while you pack your things." Darren left without a word. Noel turned to Carlos. "How many more like him?" Carlos hesitated. "1 or 2. Depends how deep you want to look." "I'll look as far as I have to." Noel stood in the corner of the depot's main floor, arms crossed, watching the morning unfold with sharper eyes. The previous day's confrontation hadn't gone unnoticed. Drivers wore their curiosity openly, glancing toward him more often, though none approached. Carlos had passed him a nod, but otherwise the lot moved with a tense, unfamiliar quiet. He didn't go back undercover, not today. The mask had come off, and now it was time to see what people did when they knew who was watching. Inside the dispatch office, the coordinator on duty, a stout woman named Francine, sat behind the scratched desk, headset around her neck. She barely looked up as Noel entered. "You said you'd have shift records pulled from the last 6 months?" he asked. Francine slid a bundle of printouts across the desk. "Took me a while. These aren't digitized. Most of it's hand-logged." He flipped through the first stack. Dozens of route sheets bore the same pattern. Full-time drivers logging 7, sometimes 8 consecutive days. Breaks consistently missing or marked as skipped. A few sheets had notes in the margins covered for no show. Dispatch overrode request. Was told to finish loop before meal. He looked up. "Do these get reviewed by regional?" Francine leaned back. "Used to. Not since the last turnover. Everything stayed local for the past year." "Why?" She hesitated. "They said the system was overwhelmed. Told us to hold things until corporate asked." Noel closed the folder. "And no one thought to escalate?" "They just stopped responding," she said. "After a while, you stop asking." He left the office and walked back toward the garage. A low whistle echoed from one of the open bays. A mechanic name patch read Tyrone was crouched under a disabled city bus, grease streaking his forearms. "You the guy who canned Darren?" Tyrone said, voice muffled by the metal undercarriage. Noel nodded. "Good. He never let me order parts on time. Said the budget wouldn't allow it. What did you do?" "Piece things together, like we were in a junkyard. You ever try welding a cracked exhaust manifold with a torch that leaks?" "How long's that been going on?" Tyrone rolled out from under the bus. 8 months, maybe longer." "Why didn't you report it?" Tyrone wiped his hands on a rag. "I did. Every time. Nothing came back down." Noel exhaled through his nose. "Anything unsafe? You want the short list or the long one?" "I want the truth." Tyrone tossed the rag onto a nearby bench. 3 buses have seatbelt issues. 2 have balding tires. I flagged them all. Dispatch still sends them out. "That stops now," Noel said. "Then you're going to need a new tire vendor. Ours dropped us last quarter. Said we bounced too many payments." Noel didn't respond. He pulled out his phone, made a quick note, then turned to leave. As he crossed the lot, a voice called out from the far side. "Sir, a moment." It was Janessa. She stood by the vending machine, arms folded across her chest. Her face looked sharper in the daylight drawn, serious. "I heard what you did yesterday," she said. "Word travels fast. I've been here 4 years. I've seen a few people try to speak up. It never sticks." "It will this time." She studied his face. "You sure?" "Yes." She glanced down. "I've got a kid with asthma. Missed 2 doctor appointments last month because they wouldn't let me leave early, said no one could cover." "Who told you that?" "Dispatch. Same line every time. We're short, sorry." "Did you file a request?" She nodded. "Twice." No response. "Who was supervisor on those shifts?" "First was Darren. Second might have been Marty." Noel's jaw tightened. "You still have the paperwork?" "Scanned copies on my phone." "I'll need them." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay." He stepped closer. "Janessa, I'm not here for headlines. I'm here because I built something that got away from me. I see that now." She looked at him, and for the first time, something in her expression shifted, less guarded, more uncertain. "You gonna talk to Marty?" she asked. "Yes." "Then you should know he's not like Darren." "But he's been in over his head for a while." Noel didn't need to ask more. He found Marty 2 hours later, pacing behind the service counter with 3 clipboards under one arm and a pen in his mouth. He looked up as Noel entered, eyes wide. "Mr. Nanders," he said, quickly setting everything down. "I wasn't expecting... I'm not here to make a scene. I need 10 minutes. Marty nodded quickly and led him into the small office behind the key rack. The room was cramped. A fan buzzed on the top shelf, pushing stale air in lazy circles. Noel sat across from him. "How long have you been managing this depot?" 6 years. "And when did it start falling apart?" Marty looked down. "About a year ago, maybe more." "What happened?" "They pulled our budget. First the overtime got capped, then the training funds dried up. I lost 2 dispatchers and my assistant manager in the same month. No replacements, just do more with less." "Why didn't you escalate?" "I tried, sent reports weekly. I even drove to district once. They said the cuts were statewide, told me to stabilize the operation." "You didn't think to tell me?" Marty's eyes flicked up. "I didn't know how. I figured, what would it matter?" Noel leaned back. The chair creaked under his weight. "You're not a bad man, Marty, but this place is running on fumes. Unsafe buses, burned out employees, toxic oversight. That's on all of us, but it ends now." Marty swallowed. "What do you need from me?" "I need a list of every flagged vehicle, every open complaint, and I need you to reassign someone to oversee driver wellness, immediately. I only have 4 people left on admin." "Then you'll reassign yourself." Marty nodded. "Understood." Noel stood. "And Marty, if anyone retaliates against an employee for speaking out, they're done." No warnings. As he stepped back into the lot, the air felt heavier. He could feel the eyes on him again. Not suspicious now, just watchful. By late afternoon, he'd set up inside one of the training rooms. Word had gone out. The owner was taking driver statements, no managers present, no names required. One by one, they came. Malik was the first. He sat stiffly, his gaze bouncing between the floor and the wall. "I don't know what you want me to say," he said. "Just tell me what happened." "I got yelled at a lot, usually over stuff I didn't understand. Once I asked for help on a route change. Darren told me to figure it out or quit, so I stopped asking. Did you ever get a full lunch break?" "Once, my second day." Noel nodded. "That's enough." After Malik came Elena, then Victor. Then a woman named Leslie, who'd driven for 15 years and nearly broke down recounting how her request for bereavement leave was delayed until the funeral had already passed. Each story added weight, not just because of what had happened, but because no one had ever expected it to be heard, let alone matter. At 6:30, the last driver left. The room was quiet again. Noel sat at the table, pen resting beside a growing stack of notes. He reached for his phone, dialed a number. A voice answered on the second ring. "Rachel here. Get me every regional manager on a video call tomorrow morning, 7 sharp. What's going on?" "We're rebuilding, from the ground up." He ended the call. Outside the window, buses rolled in one by one, their engines idling low. The sun was starting to drop behind the depot wall, casting long shadows across the pavement. And for the first time in a long time, Noel Nanders wasn't watching from a distance. At precisely 6:58 the next morning, Noel sat in the small, windowless conference room above the depot garage. The walls were bare, save for a faded route map pinned crookedly near the door. In front of him, a company-issued laptop buzzed to life as the regional video call connected. Faces flickered onto the screen, 9 regional managers, a few looking groggy, others visibly tense. He didn't waste time. "Effective immediately," Noel began. "Every depot is to submit a verified equipment inspection log every 72 hours. Any flagged vehicle is to be grounded until cleared by a certified mechanic. No exceptions." The faces on screen remained still. He continued. "Each location will also assign one field liaison, someone not in management, to report driver health and safety concerns directly to corporate. Weekly. Anonymous submissions allowed." One of the managers, a woman with short red hair labeled Lynette Northern Region, raised her hand slightly. "Noel, some of our locations are already short-staffed. Pulling someone off a route for that liaison role might worsen coverage." "I've reviewed the staffing reports," he said. "You'll adjust schedules, not increase hours. If that means pulling back a route or two temporarily, so be it. But we're not burning people out to keep numbers on paper." Another voice, Marlon from Central Region, jumped in. "What about compensation? If we're asking drivers to do more reporting, they'll want to know they're not just ticking boxes." "They're not," Noel replied. "Every depot will designate a driver wellness fund. I've approved an initial budget of $50,000 per region. That covers emergency leave, family support, and performance-based bonuses. I don't want to hear about a single denied doctor appointment again." Someone on the call let out a quiet breath. Noel didn't acknowledge it. "This isn't temporary. These are structural changes. If any of you feel unable to implement them, I'll accept your resignation today." No one spoke. He closed the laptop. By late morning, the lot was humming with cautious energy. A rep from HR had arrived to help collect formal statements, and the office printer ran non-stop as forms were filled out. Malik sat with the rep for over an hour, while Janessa met with a legal advisor from corporate who'd been flown in that morning. Marty approached as Noel stepped out into the garage. "We've grounded 3 buses already," Marty said. "Tyrone flagged the tire wear. I moved their routes onto 2 alternates, but it's going to push start times back." Noel nodded. "That's fine. Notify riders if needed. Safety comes first." Marty hesitated. "There's something else." A driver named Leslie came in early. She said one of the dispatchers, Henry, told her last weekend that if she didn't make up a missed shift, she'd lose her seniority status. Did she? She covered a double, but she's got documentation now. Wants to file a formal complaint. "Where's Henry now?" "In dispatch. He's on shift until 3. "Not anymore." Noel walked across the lot, past the fueling station and into the dispatch office. Inside, Henry sat at the terminal, typing with one hand while holding a headset to his ear. Noel waited. When Henry looked up, confusion crossed his face. "I need to speak with you. Step outside." Henry followed him without a word. Outside, the wind had picked up, tugging at the flags above the gate. You told Leslie she'd lose seniority if she didn't work a weekend double. That true? She missed 2 shifts last month, Henry said. I was firm with her, sure, but I didn't threaten anything. Did you mention her seniority? Henry's jaw worked for a moment. I said she needed to show commitment or her status might change. We're trying to keep people accountable. You don't determine seniority. You don't speak on it. You don't use it as leverage. Henry crossed his arms. Look, I've been dealing with constant no-shows. I've got to keep the board filled somehow. Not like this. You're done. Henry blinked. Wait, fired? Correct. You can't be serious. I've been here 5 years. I'm aware, and you've just confirmed you've been misusing authority. This isn't a warning, Henry. It's over. Henry stood frozen. Noel didn't wait for him to respond. Back inside, he found Marty reviewing the adjusted driver schedule. I need someone to oversee retraining for all dispatch staff, Noel said. From scratch, policies, conduct, escalation procedures. I'll do it, Marty said without looking up. Noel raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yeah, I should have stepped in months ago. I just kept thinking things would settle if I kept moving fast enough. Noel placed a hand on his shoulder. Not anymore. That afternoon, he sat down with Janessa in the now-cleared training room. A half-empty water bottle sat near her elbow. Her posture was straighter than it had been 2 days ago. You sticking around? She asked. I'll be in and out. But I've appointed a new oversight lead to visit weekly, someone neutral, not tied to upper management. She nodded. People are talking, in a good way. You still feel like the job's killing you? She gave a faint smile. Not today. Carlos stepped in a few minutes later, fresh off his route. His shirt was damp with sweat, but his expression was lighter. They gave me an actual lunch window today, he said, dropping into the chair beside her. 15 minutes, no radio calls. Progress, Noel said. You really meant all this, Carlos said. I figured it'd be one of those CEO visits, shakes hands, disappears situations. I let this place drift too long, not anymore. Carlos leaned back. You know, a lot of drivers have side hustles, part-time gigs, warehouse shifts. They don't want to, they have to. I've seen the pay scale. It's not enough. You planning to raise it? Already approved. First tier goes up next payroll cycle. Top earners get a retention bonus if they've stayed clean on attendance 6 months. Carlos's eyebrows lifted. That'll keep a few around? I don't want to keep a few, Noel said. I want to rebuild trust, top to bottom. The next morning, 2 new drivers arrived at the depot for orientation. One had experience in logistics, the other came from a shutdown shuttle service across town. Both were surprised to find the CEO sitting in on the welcome session. I want you to know who I am before you ever get behind the wheel, Noel told them. And I want you to know that if something's broken equipment, policy, or people, you have the right to say so. They nodded, slightly stunned. Outside, the buses began rolling out. The air smelled of diesel and fresh asphalt. The lot had finally been patched after weeks of neglect. A new sign had been posted near the driver entrance. No meal breaks skipped. No unsafe vehicles. No exceptions. Noel stood at the edge of the lot, watching the morning shift pull out, one by one. There were still gaps on the schedule, still repairs to be made, still tired people walking through those gates. But they weren't walking alone anymore.